If you play the electric guitar, no doubt there's been a point in your life when you've tried to do this. And it probably ends in a very similar fashion. I'm of course talking about Eric Johnson, and I'm talking about the song Cliffs of Dover, which is his signature thing. Not many guitar players can lay claim to having a signature guitar intro noodle, I guess. There's a lot of players who have signature riffs or signature licks, but that kind of thing he does at the beginning of Cliffs of Dover is pretty much like enshrined in the consciousness of the guitar community. So in this video, I want to show you how not to play like Eric Johnson, because Eric Johnson is just a truly special, phenomenal musician. I saw him live recently, and he was so good. Like, it almost made you angry how good he was if his music wasn't so awesome, and if he wasn't such a like genuinely humble guy on stage. You sit there going, I can't believe I'm actually witnessing this. This is amazing. And he was playing with so much less gain and effects than you would expect listening to his studio records. Like, unlike me at the moment, I need all the cheat codes I can with delay and distortion and things like that. So there's a lot of Johnsonisms, I guess, out there. And if you go and watch some of his instructional videos, he kind of runs through them. And one thing that really stuck with me when I watched one of his instructional videos as a teenager was he talks about how he took very disparate guitar influences like Keith Richards and Wes Montgomery and Eric Clapton and kind of merged them all into his own style. And, you know, over the years, as I have tried my hardest to play like Eric Johnson and failed time and time again, that kind of thing really resonated with me. It's like, hang on, rather than try to play like Eric Johnson, why don't you take his advice and try to, you know, incorporate things that he does, but also incorporate elements of your other players. And one player that I absolutely love is Paul Gilbert. And I always remember watching his first intense rock VHS back in the day, where he talks about playing a minor pentatonic scale with an added ninth degree, and he phrases it 3 notes per string like this. So in that case, I'm playing the A minor pentatonic scale, normally the notes A, C, E, and G, and I'm adding in the ninth degree, or the second note from the minor scale, which would give us A, B, C, D, E, G. You could play it in a box pattern like this. And if you combine that with, you know, your kind of classic Eric Johnson things, like where he might play a pentatonic pattern of descending 5s or descending 6s. You can hear, you can kind of access some of that kind of EJ sound in there, which is really, really fun. Another thing that Eric Johnson does a lot is use a minor pentatonic scale, but substitute the minor third for the major third. So you get what I would call the dominant pentatonic. It's essentially a Mixolydian tonality, you know, this kind of thing. So that's super fun, but going back to that minor pentatonic scale with the added second or ninth, whatever you want to call it, and phrasing it 3 notes per string, it kind of never struck me that if I wanted to try to play some of these like descending 6s ideas that Eric does, like connecting the dots between that thing I saw in a Paul Gilbert video where Paul's playing, you know, an 80A MP1 with a super percussive tone, and he's got that, you know, the popsicle stick stuck in the spokes of the bike kind of sound, that brrr kind of picking sound, which is kind of the polar opposite to me of like the really smooth legato style stuff EJ does. What if you took like an EJ style approach, but you use that phrasing pattern that I stole from Paul Gilbert? So sort of pulling together different influences, you know, the good advice I got from that Eric Johnson video. And if you do that, you can kind of cheat your way through some of these EJ style licks, which for me, I find the 2-note per string pentatonic stuff very difficult to pick. You know, whether it's Eric Johnson, whether it's John McLaughlin, whether it's Zach Wilde, Frank Marino, those kind of guys. They seem very, very good at playing these 2-note per string pentatonic patterns. And that's something that never came as easy for me as doing the 3-note per string stuff. So my whole how not to play like Eric Johnson thing is to take the minor pentatonic with an added ninth, which we can call the hexatonic scale, because there's 6 notes in it. And we could phrase it using, say, some classic, you know, descending sixes patterns. For example, if I'm in the key of A, I would play the pattern like this. And I might start on the top note and do, say, 6 notes down. Try to put it together with some of those other ideas like that. So for me, like I said, I find it a lot more straightforward to play the 3-note per string style things, like the Paul Gilbert style stuff. But using it with, you know, a kind of more of this beautiful mud kind of tone, I think I've got way too much distortion going on at the moment for a true EJ kind of thing. But sort of merging those two worlds, I think, can be really, really fun. As you saw there, you know, if we do that in the key of E and we kind of mangle Cliffs of Dover up, then you can see where there's some of those patterns, like, you know, in Cliffs of Dover, there's the lick which goes. Something like that. You guys follow me. I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of comments like, ha ha ha, you suck. That didn't sound like EJ at all. You are not as fluent. Guess what? That's the whole point of the video. I can't play like Eric Johnson. You probably can't play like Eric Johnson either. I'm trying to make your life easier here. So that lick there where he goes, something like that, you could play using this hexatonic fingering where you do it 3 notes per string. So 15, 14, 12 on the top string, and then 15, 12, 10. Because that hexatonic pattern, if you go and watch Paul Gilbert's Intense Rock and steal it from there, it's an octave shape, so it repeats every octave. You could go. All that kind of stuff there. And one little trick, you know, that like famous cascading thing he does at the end, this. I always thought he picked all of that, like doing this kind of thing. But you can cheat through that and use hybrid picking. That makes so much more sense. Another really great player with an incredible technique and smooth tone is Sean Lane. And I remember seeing a Sean Lane thing. We're talking about another influence that we're bringing here, another kind of like 80s guitar giant. Well, Sean Lane should have been considered a giant. If you've never heard Sean Lane play the guitar, do yourself a favor. Just stunning, stunning stuff. That's part of the reason I like to do these videos, because I think a lot of people watch my channel often for like the metal stuff and the 80s rock stuff, but you know, I'm a massive guitar nerd, and if you don't know who Sean Lane is, what are you doing here? You got the internet, go and watch him. But yeah, using hybrid picking there to play that kind of lick, you could adapt that to a bunch of other scenarios. Say like if you took the pentatonic scale, you know, our good old box pattern in E, And what we'll do is we'll anchor ourselves on that 12th fret. And essentially all you're going to do is go through and combine like this position. And the next box position up, and you can get that cool kind of pedal tone thing. So I'd be pedaling off 15 on the B, then 16-14 on the G, then 17-14 on the D and the E. And that's a cool way out for me to get out of that 2-note per string thing. I mean, it's still great to sit there and practice those like descending 6s and descending 5s. But one thing I can't get, another great guitar player you should check out, if you go and look at Doug Rappaport, he's another guy who does the EJ stuff very, very well. The way he would pick something like that would be with a downstroke on that last note, but I do it with an upstroke, and that I just can't. I've tried so hard to do it the way someone like Doug does or someone like EJ, and it just feels better to go the other way for me. Another great player you should check out on YouTube who's got very much an Eric Johnson influence style is Cooper Carter. If you're an Axe Effects guy, no doubt you know about him, but some of his stuff and watching him pick this stuff is he does that whole EJ style as well as anybody else I've heard, and I totally can't do it. I have this like mangled heavy metal 3-note per string Paul Gilbert thing going on, but it's fun. You know, if I want to pretend I'm Eric Johnson playing Cliffs of Dover, then this approach of, you know, taking the hexatonic scale, adding that 9th in there, and then doing it 3 notes per string, really, it works for me, and I think it's one of those things it's worth experimenting with to see if it works for you. And the other thing as well, that dominant pentatonic, one of the most viewed videos I have is like a video I did ages before I was doing the whole YouTube thing. I got a GoPro and use it as a test. I called it the Indian pentatonic scale, and you can go and watch that lesson there. But guys like Jeff Beck, Steve Hillage, EJ, combining, you know, the pentatonic, but it's got a major third. And then playing the hexatonic scale. Say if you played the chords E major, and then you played C major, you'd use that dominant pentatonic over E major, and then the hexatonic over C major. So E dominant pentatonic, then E minor hexatonic over C, and that gives you that kind of like Venus Isle sound. That kind of vibe, that also reminds me of a bunch of guys like George Lynch or Warren DeMartini if you're a hair metal fan. So that's how not to play like Eric Johnson, according to me, somebody who can definitely not play guitar like Eric Johnson. If you liked this video, I've got a few other videos like this, picking apart a few other player styles like John Sykes and EVH, J.K. Lee, Yngwie Malmsteen, and I would love to do more. So if you want to see me bumble my way through the style of like how not to play like a famous guitar player, please let me know, because these videos are a whole lot of fun. Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, fire up that hexatonic scale and play some EJ licks. I will see you guys next time.